I'm Charles,
I'm David.
and you are listening to
Blight Makes Right.
the original Legion of Everblight podcast. So you don't exactly look like Emmanuel.
I am not Emmanuel. I'm a sorry substitution, but I'll do what I can.
Yeah. Well, you got like way more hair than Emmanuel and I combined. So it's good to have some fluff on the podcast. But Emmanuel's taking the week off. He's actually getting games in right now, as far as I know, doing some animag into Scary Gary is, I believe, what he's practicing right now. But it's a challenge for all of us. Sometimes we just have to make some sacrifices to like actually go out and get games in. And that's one of the most important things. But David's stepping up. He's, already guest hosted with us once, but we're happy to have David on again. Fellow Legion bro. We're just happy you're not playing Signar, dude.
I am not playing Signar. Nope. None of that nonsense.
But it was interesting because there was just a post in the Lord of the Feast general chat, and someone was asking about like, they'd been listening to a podcast and they'd suggested like getting in like 4 or 5 games a week, like is good practice. And Mr. Michael Chillywinters commented, and he was like, there was a point where they were sometimes getting in 5 games a day, and it was not uncommon, like during like the per year prep year, where it was easily 10 games a week, if not more.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We, when Pagani was running the store here in Houston, per year and I would both show up on our lunch breaks, bang out a game over lunch. And so Pagani would set up the first game. I'd show up and play him. As soon as we were done, per year would show up and play him, and I would go back to work. I'd get out of work, and Pagani would have played another game with someone who had been there. I mean, Pagani would get in 50 games in a month. And again, he owned a game store and had the access to it. But that was like the month that I'm talking about, particularly, was when Morvana 2 came out. And he had like 4 days to practice her before going to Mayhem Cup, and happened to end up taking the event down.
Yeah.
But he'd already had 20 or 30 games with it in 4 days. It was insane.
It's kind of crazy what you can do with, like, I mean, I feel great when I go out and I get a tournament in and I'm like, man, I knocked out like 4 or 5 games in this day. Like, and I feel good about it. But I was reading a chess article at one point. Actually, Emmanuel had posted, I think I've mentioned on the podcast, but it was talking about one of the top female chess players of all time. And is there's a point where like her as a chess player, like literally all she did was sleep, get up, chess for like 8 hours, then go out drinking, talking about chess, go home, sleep, do it again. And like, that's the kind of thing that chess masters, like, that is not an uncommon situation to be in. So when we talk about like some of the best players in War Machine, like, and I would say Pagani was probably the person more so than probably anyone else. Like you're talking about like his ability to get in a constant stream of games on a weekly basis, probably more so than anyone else in the US, at least. Like I can't imagine, I don't think any other, I mean, maybe Jay or Trevor from Chain Attack, like they may have had some points where they were getting in quite a few games on a weekly basis, but I don't think anyone touched Pagani's level.
No, he was a true, fanatic of War Machine. Whenever he would, like something new would come out, that was all we talked. Like you said, play War Machine all day, go out and drink, talk about War Machine. Wake up in the morning and you have 50 texts in your group chat about War Machine. Like when the books would release in Mark II, and you just had a whole year's worth of data in a month.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a blast. And nowadays, I'm also happy. I'm like, oh look, I got my 4 games in this week. That was excellent.
I know, right? I mean, there was a point when I came back and I'm like, I'm going to get in at least 2 games a week. Like that was my starting point coming back in. I'm like, I just need to be getting in some games each week. And then when I did a tournament, and like it felt great, but trying to find ways of like getting that up a little bit is always a challenge. Like everybody's got lives and trying to find ways. But one of the things we've been talking about a little bit in the Legion Discord has been, you gotta pick like a couple of casters, maybe 2 to 3, like give yourself a little bit of variety, and you can change up the list a little bit and tweak them and try slightly different battle groups or unit configurations, that sort of thing. But you need to get in multiple games per week, trying, if you can't get in 4 to 5, like that's okay. But if you want to speed up your progress, you want multiple games going as consistently as you can. And then you have got to talk about the games. Like Jaden and I played a very short game at the end of the PDX Open, but he and I have probably spent quadruple the amount of time we played that game talking about it and reviewing different things that either of us could have done to improve that matchup, or like things like he forgot about a counter charge and we're like double checking all the GoLab interactions and stuff. Like, you have got to talk about the games. You've got to talk about how the terrain affected your decisions and your opponent's decisions and all that kind of stuff. Like, talking about it and dissecting it afterwards is where a ton of that information comes from.
Yeah, we would, particularly the games that Chili was talking about. One of the things that he mentioned was 5 or 6 games in one night of Sev 1 versus Terminus, and they would play it. Terminus would run at Sev. Priya would try to kill him. Priya would die. Re-rack, and they would just put all the models back. They wouldn't even roll to see who goes first again. They would just re-rack that same scenario over and over and over again, and then that doesn't take as long as, hey, do you want a game? Sure. All right, let me unpack my models, move stuff, put up terrain. When you're sitting there trying to get in like tournament practice games, when you go, oh, I need it like today. I need to know how to beat Iona. Iona's a very good caster. I need to get reps into her. I'm not going to walk into the game store and be like, hey, does anybody want to play some Iona? I try to schedule it ahead of time and get in there and say, okay,
for sure.
I want to play 2 games if you've got time, and I want to go first and I want you to go first. And we're going to see how this goes on Spread the Net.
I absolutely love that strategy. That is something that I will often do as well. Like, dude, I want to get like this game in. I need practice against Core Shade 4. Let's do this matchup. You go first, then I'll go first, and we'll just immediately play the same matchup, and see how it is from both sides. And figure that out. I mean, sometimes it's easier for me because when you hit a matchup and they're like, I want to go first, and I'm like, I want to go second because I play Primal Terrors. Then we're like, cool, if that's what it's going to be, let's just keep practicing that. Unless, you hit a point, you're like, maybe it's not right for me to, you may talk about that sort of thing. And like, say if you're playing against Callus, right, and it's Mirage, you may not want to let Callus go second. That is, even if your normal plan is to go first. And I'm talking like this because I know we have a lot of non-Legion listeners as well. So people may be coming here for the Legion advice. So, but anyway, so obviously competitive is the drive. We're all trying to find games. Emmanuel's out getting in games right now. I'm going to try to still get in some games this weekend. And I'm excited for Seattle Open in 2 weeks, which will most likely be Callus and Vale. Callus 1, Vale 1, because I am loving playing my girl again. But you have been testing out some stuff as well, David. So if I understand things, you've been playing a little Absalonia 2?
Yeah, since the Archangel was changed fairly recently. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to find casters that really make it sing, because a common Legion issue right now is we're bad into gun lines, dedicated hardcore gun lines. So I want to find something other than my Fianna list, which I've been playing for 2 years now, and although I love playing it, I want to play something else.
Need some variety in there. So are you thinking Absalonia 2 kind of could sing with your Thagrosh list? Is that kind of your thought process?
That's the plan. I think that an Archangel gives me a big central piece that I can protect with a single upkeep spell, a unit of Valkyries, and use its gun to kind of skirmish a little bit before I actually need to go in with Abby, because normally her alpha tries to carry the game. This way I can kind of hold back and say, hey, let's put a couple of shots in there, see if I can pick off your picket line and get some really juicy targets in there.
Well, and sometimes, you'll see people that want to avoid letting you trigger Alpha Hunter, and you may just like pop them a couple of times to the Archangel, then have Abby go in, finish off the light or whatever, then she repos back, and now you have Alpha Hunter, and then you might even still be a feat turn. Who knows?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, so what's the list that you have been testing out?
So it's Abby with an Archangel, and then trying to find the points around it, I've been wiggling a lot of different stuff. Currently, it is Proteus, because I think Proteus is almost an auto-include despite how expensive he is with her.
Okay.
Pair of Nerifs, a unit of Blight Wasps, 1 Seraph, a pair of Forsaken, 1 Shepherd, a Sorceress and a Hellion, and a unit of Bellows Crew, so I can hold some objectives.
Okay, so you do not have room for the Ice Witches, but you said you do have Valkyries in there?
So this is the list that I play Sans Valkyries. If I need Valkyries, I generally will cut the Nerif, one of the Nerifs for Valks, and slide in. Uh, then I pay for one of my Forsaken and get a second Sorceress and a Hellion. So that's my wiggle room.
Okay.
This happened to be the list I played tonight.
So we are talking about Absalonia 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's probably why I built some Absalonia 1 lists. I'm like, I feel like we're some points short. But okay, so Absalonia 2. How have you felt about the Nerf so far? Because I personally, I've loved the Nerfs, and we can go back. This is going to become the Pagani podcast because I feel like I'm going to mention him a lot in this. But I was talking with him at LVO, and we were talking about how good the Nerf is for 12 points, and that beast has no justification for being Mat 7. That Mat 7 is pure extra juicy stat that really probably shouldn't be there. It would still be an awesome beast with Mat 6, but for some reason it's Mat 7. But in my experience, as much as I've loved double Nerf and I've been squeezing Nerfs in all over the place, they just do great work, but I've really liked them with a consistent turn-to-turn damage buff. And Abby does not have that in her epic form, but she obviously has the feat. How have they performed? Because obviously they sprint back. They're more likely to survive than some other beasts, like, say, Proteus, that has to go forward and kind of stay forward. What have your experiences been with that so far?
So you'd mentioned sprinting back, and I'll do that when I'm skirmishing early game, particularly if I can trigger an Alpha Hunter on non-feat turn, like turn 2. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to feat yet. We'll have them go forward, kill a couple of things, charge in a tractor, kill them, back up. But on my feat turns, they're going to go in, do whatever they need to do, and then sprint forward, jam my opponent, protect my Archangel, protect Proteus, and give me that next turn where I've actually got a beater, which is the Archangel. That thing beats every turn.
For sure. And when you have Alpha Hunter, but man, when you get to trigger Alpha Hunter for the sprint, since it's speed, the Nerfs get to back up 9 or fly forward 9.
Mm-hmm.
They go forever with Alpha Hunter. But that was actually, I was wondering if that was going to be your play with them, because I feel like they're the wrong choice in that list for late game play. And so one of the things I've loved with them is using them as no knockdown shields in front of key things, like putting 2 Nerfs together to block line of sight to a caster. Have you found that there's been situations like Proteus goes forward, kills a juicy threat that's part of the way up, the Nerfs kill some other stuff and kind of sprint to force people to come into the Nerfs before they can even get to Proteus?
Certainly. And if you get a chance to have a Nerf go up, kill something juicy before the feat turn, and then sprint into a position where Abby can then get to whatever kills it or tries to get on it, I mean, there's your Alpha Hunter target, and you're only trading a 12-point heavy for it.
That's a great consideration. Use the Nerf as the bait, or whatever you're going to send in, because if they're sending in a heavy, that's fantastic. But if they send in troops, it's just really easy Alpha Hunter pickings. So okay, I think that's one of those things that I think almost goes without saying, but as soon as you say it, you're like, yes, that's one of those subtle play positioning things that can, just set up the game for you. So I dig it. Have there been any thoughts of changing out models in the list? One of the things that I struggle with Absalonias is that I really want access to spiny growth. So when I'm looking at Proteus, I often want to switch him for a Carnivean to gain a Shepherd or a Spell Martyr, gain access to spiny growth, and have a gun. But I know but Proteus has grievous wounds with her, so it's tough. Have you tried the swap, or has it been all Proteus all the time?
I've always taken Proteus. I had a Carnivean in her list early Mark III before themes, because I thought the Carnivean coming down in points was great, and Carnivean is just amazing, honestly. But for 18 points and needing to spend one of its fury to get the +2 armor, it's just too squishy.
Totally fair. So, okay. So, what sort of things have you tried this into?
Well, I built it as a circle drop. I wanted to see how it did into Iona and Kruger, because I don't think that Thagrosh does well into that for the most part, at least in my Primal Terrors build.
I would agree. I like Thagrosh in Primal Terrors, but in the Iona matchup in particular, if you don't have an accuracy boost then the Iona game can go real bad real fast. And so like I'm comfortable playing Callus and Veil 2 or Veil 1 into it, but they both accuracy boost for days. And that can be that's one of the things that's held me back from playing Thags is I just feel like I'm always facing down a some sort of defensive buff. And I'm just Thags can kind of struggle. Obviously you got Gorag, but that's not always enough. Okay,
No,
so
I mean, the list gets to Mat 11, but with Abby, I'm able to use the Archangel to walk up, boosting AoE shots into those blood trackers. And then that ends up thinning that unit out quite a bit. And the Hellions play an amazing job in that matchup, sitting kind of forward and either drawing out key pieces to kill my free models, like Lord of the Feast, or the two-character unit. I forget what they're called. The big dude who kills Lightbringers. Yeah. So Call comes out and kills one of those things. But they'll shut down those blood trackers, and the cavalry solos that try to jump in and jump behind your models, they can't function when you have a Hellion. So I found that part to work really well. The Blight Wasps also are amazing into that matchup. They hit like trucks. They're just good enough to go in, and with boosting to hits, they can go in and kill, 4 or 5 of the blood trackers, clean them out, finish off of the Tharn. And then the Archangel is a big enough piece that as long as you don't let him get a heavy or something really big on it post-feat turn, it's okay.
Well, it's also nice that Abby can just do her, cast her spell and like potentially heal aspects on a variety of beasts. So, if Tharn got some attacks in a few different places, it's not really that big of a deal. But
certainly,
I like that you brought up the Sorceress on Hellion for the Circle matchup, because it's very interesting that if you do the no shooting aura, you may not be able to stop Lord of the Feast from shooting at his full range, but at least he can't charge in and then rave into some bullshit position that you don't want him in.
Certainly.
And that is something I hadn't thought about until just now, right? At least having the Sorceress on Hellion there can at least make his like bullshit mode like a little calmer.
And Blight Wasp's threat so far that a lot of the time you can either Pac-Man to him and try to finish him off with the Blight Wasp before he gets to go, or you can kind of try to draw him out with moving your Archangel up and then having the Hellion kind of close to him, so that if he tries to get within 7 to shoot the Archangel, you've got your bubble to protect you.
Makes sense. So one of the things that I've been seeing pop up more often is I've been seeing Circle players shifting away from Kruger in favor of Wormwood. How do you feel about this into Wormwood?
Bad. Archangel and Wormwood, super sad.
Oh yeah, so that's been my concern, because like I've been getting the Iona matchup most of the time, but I see every Circle player that I've talked to, and if like we've been seeing the matchup, and we kind of both feel like the matchup's hard. Like I don't feel like we're as screwed by Iona as a lot of other factions, but it's still a tough game, but it's also tougher than what they're used to. So they're like, I'm dropping Iona into easy wins, and Legion is like, whether it's Callus or even Animag potentially, like these are not necessarily as easy of wins as what they've been getting in some of the other matchups. And so I've been seeing them shift towards Wormwood. But I don't know if that's what like everybody's doing, but it just seems over here, West Coast, it's becoming Wormwood Iona.
Well, I know here we don't have a lot of Circle players, so I've been playing Iona Wormwood into Perrier and Jeremy and people who need games into Circle, because I think that's the better way to go, honestly. That pairing is disgusting.
Yeah, it's pretty damn strong.
Yeah, I mean Kruger is an amazing caster. You can't argue with that. And him with that Stormbird is really good, but Wormwood locking things down that can handle the Tharn.
Yeah, it's the thing. I'm not sure Kruger really like covers any of the matchups that are a struggle for Iona. That's one of the weird things when you have like two fantastic casters, but they kind of cover similar matchups. And so you're like, I don't really actually need Kruger for very many matchups. And that's where I think the attraction to Wormwood has gone. So are you kind of sticking with the same thing for Thags? Like you are still feeling that direction?
Well, I started playing, so because we kind of went through it. If you play Abby into Wormwood, you're bad. If you play Abby into Kruger and Iona, you're good. Maybe it's not the right drop for me. So trying to find that list that pairs with my Thag PT list has been difficult. So I'm starting to play Thagrosh back in Oracles again, putting
Oh, okay.
thrones in front of him, put him in between the thrones, and let his aura extend out, and then put Hellions behind the thrones so that he can't walk up and shoot much. And that has proved effective into pretty much everything. But the
So what
battle
else?
group,
Yeah, what
let's
else
see.
goes in the battle group if you do the double throne?
Typhon, 2 Seraphs, and I think we ended up with. I ended up running a Naga in one of my games, and I didn't have a Naga in another one. And missing out on the Naga made me real sad into Iona. But
So, did you say 2 Seraphs
Nerfs.
and 2 Nerfs? Okay, I was like, that can't be right. Like, I must be mishearing. So, okay, yeah, 2 Nerfs makes sense.
Yeah, and the little bit of sprint helps. The +2 damage from Thagrosh really helps with the Seraph's damage output, or the Nerf's damage output, so that it can actually go in there and kill a heavy if it needs to with a free charge. Into Wormwood, it's not as bad. You've got armor 20 thrones. Maybe he doesn't land all of his strangleholds on them. And depending on the Wormwood list, a lot of them don't have the hitting power to get through. If he's playing Wormwood in Bones, it can struggle to get enough damage output to get through a list like that. Thagrosh 1's always been a good drop against Circle. So see if I can build him into a new way. The other version of that list I haven't played it yet, but I was talking with Julian Lesage about it, was Typhon double Ravagore double thrones, and just building a gun line that walks up the table and just, I mean, Ravagore's counterpunching is still very legit.
Yeah, and I mean, people aren't playing quite as many shield guards and such. It also, one of the things that I was thinking about is also the perspective of, say, into like the Scorn matchup. Like Ravagores get real scary for the Immortals if they're combined with Amok. And so, if they can't go in Corporeal, the Scather just kills them. And that shuts down so much of an Immortal list. Now, obviously, Makita 3 is bringing a crap ton of shield guards, so it's, gets kind of questionable. But it was just a thought. So I want to run something by you while we're talking about Thags, because I have this, Thagrosh is why I got into the game, but he keeps not quite being right for me. And I did buy 2 more units of Warmongers. They're literally sitting over here, primed, but I haven't gotten to painting the other 2 units yet. But so, me, I try to stop and go, am I always including blank because that's just kind of the attitude? And so one of the things I was thinking about is wanting to play GoLab with Thags and being like, well, you really can't run the double chosen with him if you want Blightbringer and GoLab. So at one point I'm building lists without the Blightbringer, but I love anti-tough in this meta, right? And having GoLab and access to the Blightbringer's anti-tough aura seems real good. But the only way that I can make that whole list happen is if I end up choosing to not go with Hellmouths, which I know seems crazy, but honestly, the way that I've been playing Hellmouths for the most part is a lot of scenario pieces. And if you're jamming with really hard to kill units like Chosen with Concealment, with a Blightbringer buff, and the negative strength aura, they're not going to be the easiest things to remove, and you're going to have pressure in the zones anyway. So obviously, I'd love to have Hellmouth also getting, the strength aura and the Blightbringer, but you can't have everything all the time. And I just try to step back and think about the list. I'm like, man, if I get to play Blightbringer and GoLab and Double Chosen and Warmongers with Gorag and I get Amok, sure, I don't get the Hellmouths, but man, the Chosen kind of get around Thags' lack of hit buff, right? Because they're so super accurate being Cav. They threaten very far. I don't know. You're way more of a Thags player than I am. So do you have thoughts? Am I going crazy, or do you think it's worth testing?
I think it's definitely worth testing. I played Sans Hellmouth early on after PT was released because I kept wanting to fit in more and more things that actually do work. And I figured with Thagros, you don't have the gallows that you have with Animag or Fianna to really abuse heavies. So if they play them right, you can just walk the heavies up and not get pulled in by the Hellmouth. So I want more things that do work instead of just contest.
Right.
I really like.
Yeah, that's essentially my thought process is, you know, a lot of times if I can make the cool drags work, it works because of Dark Guidance or Frostfield. Like those, when I put those on the Hellmouth, then suddenly they're really accurate. And then like I can, you know, go for some of these crazy pulls because they have a reasonable chance of hitting. But Thag doesn't really have that. And I'm just thinking like, man, making all this stuff super hard to kill. I don't know. I like it. I'm and that's one of the things. That's part of why I took Blightbringer out of Callus. I'm like, I'm just not going to be building with auto includes necessarily.
Except Amok. Amok goes in pretty much every primal fairy.
That is one that I do feel like, and that was actually, that's where I was going to go with it is, it was because I didn't want to take out Amok. And I was like looking at the list and like, how do I make this work? And I'm like, do I take out Amok? But I'm like, no, like he makes the Scorn matchup possible, right? Like he messes with the Immortals and he has personally saved me in like every single Scorn game. And I'm like, I just don't think he can go out. And having the ability for him to go up and remove the defensive buff off of the Tharn, like when they come in, like that's a big deal too. And man, oh, I love him with Veil. Having him be able to walk up, unbind, and then walk backwards afterwards, pretty delightful. So anyway, that's one of the things that I wanted to test. Because as much as I've liked the Warmongers, I played an Animag game last weekend. Again, I'm trying to like shake up my thoughts about auto includes, and this was actually to a certain extent inspired partially by your Thags list. I wanted to play all Vengeance units, but I'm not a huge fan of the Warmongers without Gorag, and I happen to have 3 full units of Painted War Spears. So I was playing Animag with just 4 units of Ogres, all with UAs. So it was no Hellmouths, but I got Golab, Seraph, Amok, and 4 units, right? So just you touch a single thing, I'm getting Vengeance is the idea. And I liked it, but I don't have a ton of experience with Animag, and I ended up struggling with the War Spears a little bit. I was specifically asked to play it into Scorn. Got to play against Sean, fantastic player out of Bellingham. He was top 4 at LVO. But he was practicing some Makita, and I felt like I was getting good work, but man, I still struggled, like not having Pathfinder on all your units. Like, yes, you can charge with it, but having Vengeances sometimes be 1.5 inches, like I still struggled with it a little bit. But
what Steam Force was he playing Makita in?
That one, he was playing it in Warhost, I believe. His list was double turtle, and then like battle group, basically.
Because in general, I like the War Spears into Scorn quite a bit, but turtles with Agonizers and Krayas are when War Spears just really drop off. That's a lot of buffs reducing their damage output by 20 or 30 points is really bad.
Yeah, there was a point where I'm like, I think I'm gonna like go all out, and then I'm doing the math. And I'm like, if I charge in all these War Spears, I do like 10 damage with the assaults. Like when you factor in, you know, those battle engines being at arm 22. But I was still able to pull out the game. And so it wasn't bad, but it didn't necessarily excite me as much as some of my other lists. You know, you can't hit them all, but I still liked it, and I may still experiment with it. I'd still like to try Animag because I think the Grievous Wounds feat is potentially real good. Like 1 unit of Warmongers into Immortals is real bad. Even on Zaltu's feat turn, if she counterfeats, like those Warmongers are going to kill like everything. Because with the strength buff, you know, they're going up to POW 16, and then they're going to have Dark Shroud. So they're effectively POW 18. So they're still killing on like 5s.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah. And so like when they're like, I'm accurate and I've got Grievous Wounds, so there's no tough, and I don't care that you're +5 armor, I'm still killing you on low rolls. They're just going to, each one of them is going to just eat Immortals. So I feel like it's worth testing.
Mhm.
But you were also playing a list with War Spears, if I recall. What was it that you were working on?
So at the end of Mark II, I started playing Lilith 2 with a Blightbringer and 2 units of War Spears because I needed something that was accurate, had a high volume of attacks, and had some board presence, which Lilith 2 always struggled with. But I wanted to be able to reach out and touch my opponent.
So, funny story. My first game ever against Nick was at TempleCon right after the War Spear UA came out, and I was playing Lilith 2 with 2 units of War Spears.
And there's a lot more synergy than you expect there.
I mean, I liked it. I didn't play great in that particular game. Like, I messed up multiple things that cost me pretty bad. But so I lost that game to Nick, but I got him back at Lock and Load.
Good.
But anyway, like, I've always felt like there's something there with War Spears and Lilith. So I've been excited to talk to you about this.
Well, my first incarnation of the list was triple War Spears, Warmongers, no Hellmouths, Blightbringer, Bolt Thrower, Amok, and I think I had a Forsaken in there.
Okay.
And I was playing that list right when PT came out because I'm like, oh, wow, I can play my Mark II list that I never got to take to WTC that I really enjoyed. Now Warmongers are FA3. Like, I'm just going to get in there. It's going to be amazing. And it was performing very well at the time. But after I put Thag 1 on the table, I never really looked back. I kept playing Thag 1. But with the way Circle is right now, I need something that's accurate, that has enough attacks to take down Tharn if they tough and heal and don't get knocked down because of the shaman, and something that can go into immortals and just chew through all of their immortals in 1 or 2 turns, because I don't want to sit there while I'm trading 1 War Spear to kill 3 immortals that just come back. Like, I can't play Thagrosh's game where he sits there and makes the game go 7 turns when they have Fiend Recruiter, all 6 of the models I kill every turn.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So Lilith has been filling that niche that I wanted perfectly. The War Spears with Mirage on them give them another 2-inch move. So now you've got War Spears that, even whenever they're not doing anything fun with Vengeance, they're still threatening 12 inches on the charge.
It's real good for the Warmongers too, like, because you have the mini feet potentially, like, being like, well, these guys are going to threaten 14 without Vengeance.
Certainly. And the War Spears give you the opportunity to walk forward. If they get a Vengeance trigger, walk up 8 inches, throw 8 inches. So they've got a 16-inch walking threat. And then she feats, and they all get 2 attacks, which gives you a huge threat range to say, if you just walk into me, I'm going to get a lot of work done. But if you let me charge with a feat and be able to make 3 attacks per ogre, charging with your gunfighter and assaulting and making your extra attack, they can just start mopping things up with the +2 strength. And if you pin cushion a unit, they just go to town.
Yeah. Plus, if you got stuff toughing, you're like, well, I got 2 more attacks on it, so
I'm going to get there. And Lilith's personal output, being able to just aim and shoot down trackers, being able to aim and pin cushion a unit of immortals if one of them's outside of the Guardian's range, and she can just start chewing through things on her own. And that's a lot of output that Thagrosh has to wait until late game to do, or that Callus has to wait till late game to do.
With access to snipe, like, even if she's shooting at a Phantasm unit of Tharn, she's hyper accurate, so that unit obviously can't have the plus defense because it's got Phantasm. So even with the -5 range, she's still range 11. Like, and if they haven't feeded yet, she only needs 8s on the damage roll to kill them. Like, she can absolutely kill a couple of Tharn. Like, not that much of an issue.
Certainly. And then the Bolt Thrower is always nice because he's got the knockdown effect. And his snipe puts him at a range where if Lord of the Feast gets into a cheeky position and I can thin out whatever's screening him, the Nephilim can definitely pick him off. He's got, Lord of the Feast is easy to hit, and he's got plenty of damage output to finish him off.
Yeah, the tough part is with the corpses at armor 19, it is dice -5, so you need like a 13 to kill. But you may be able to do a situation where, Lilith like caps a couple of Tharn and then takes her last like snapfire shot like
Mm-hmm.
into him just to get a few damage points in.
And then
Because
you're golden.
yeah, right. Then just dice -7. If she can boost damage on it and she gets 3 or 4 points in, then suddenly that bolt thrower is like, all right, guys, it's party time. We're
I'll
gonna
take my
dirt
coin
nap
flip into
this
this
orc
any day.
collector. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But the
Well, and you got the
Blightbringer,
Blightbringer shot too, right? Like when you're talking about the cheeky shit, sometimes you just scare the shit out of him.
or when you feat and the Blightbringer shoots twice. The amount of area of the table that's covered by his aura at that point is insane. No Tharn get tough, or you have your +2 armor aura everywhere. The list has been a lot of fun to play. And I've been trying different variations where I play 2 units of War Spears, and I try to add in, for the third unit, a unit of Chosen. Give me a big unit to jam in there, take up some board space. I mean, Chosen threat with Mirage forever. I mean,
oh, that's delightful. 14-inch Chosen threat ranges. Well, also, then if anything jams them up, they can potentially apparition backwards or away. Like
impact right back in.
Love it.
Yeah, they've been fun. I've also tried a minimum unit of Warmongers with Gorag just to try to fit him in there, and a minimum unit of birds, which just gives me a bunch of models to throw around. I just want to get Gorag in the list.
Yeah.
And the birds help you free up War Spears if they get jammed, so that they can then walk forward and throw. She's been a ton of fun. I really like Lilith too. She's a blast.
So if you were to like go to a tournament right now with the Lilith list, what would you pair with it? Would you bring Abby, or like what would the other list be?
Gun to my head, I'd bring Fianna. She's my favorite caster in Legion, so I would still play her.
I would not have guessed that. I would have thought that Thags. I got the feeling that Thags was your baby, but you feel like it's Fianna?
I started playing Fianna a couple of years ago, and I've probably played 400 games of her because I would have taken her to 2 WTCs. I mean, I've been grinding out games with her for so long, and she does everything I want. She's a combination of Veil 1 and Saren from Mark 2. Like she's just a blast to play.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's like playing Saren with a damage buff, right?
Which
like
is anything we've ever wanted.
Which I still would love Saren to get a damage buff. I just don't feel like her current feat does enough. I think Draconic Blessing would actually be a great one for her. Like,
let's do it. I'd take Disintegrate.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. So Fianna and Oracles with Lilith. You feel like that's a solid potential pairing?
Certainly. It handles all of the gun lines with Fianna. Any melee matchup I can try to play War Spears into. It's possible that I don't have a good, like Lilith 2 isn't good enough into Scorn Imperial Warhost. Because of the buff stacking, I don't have a Naga. Like double turtle might be too much to get through for the list. I haven't played it yet. Our Scorn player has been on a play Immortals with every caster in the game kick. So
yeah, that's fair. Like, I mean, even Immortals are still good with Makita. Like, I don't blame the guy, but yeah,
Kirk played on our WTC or our ATC team.
Kirk was the baller. Like, he put all of us to shame. Like, Kirk led that team. Like, me, you, Purrier, Jeremy, like, Kirk blew all of us away. I actually, I totally messaged JVM when he was like, when we found out that he was gonna be captain. I was like, hey man, I know you may not know Kirk like very well compared to a lot of these other guys, but I just want you to know, like, this guy blew me away. Like, he was the guy on the team that I didn't know and had no experience with. And so you always kind of assume in the back of your mind, right? Like, if you hop on a team and there's this one dude you don't know, that's the guy who like snuck his way in because he knew the right people, which that was me in this particular case. But Kirk was the ringer for sure. Like, he 5-0'd with like no issue.
Yeah, one listing it. Just I'm gonna run Makita at everyone.
But yeah, I was like, dude, you know, if you feel like you like a Scorn player is what you need, like, I was like, you just consider Kirk. Like, he's really, really good.
To be fair, they got Watt, so
right. Like, and I didn't know at that point. I did not know that Watt was applying.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think that you can go wrong with Jason Watt. I don't care if he shows up playing half an army. He's just one of the best players out there. But I mean, Kirk's been playing that Immortals list with Makita, and it's better than anyone gives it credit for. It's pretty good.
Yeah, when we were putting together the team, like I had like no real Scorn experience into Mark III, and now like I'm just seeing like Iona and Scorn all the time. That's like almost all of my games, which is fine to a certain extent. Like of the things that we could face, like I don't think Legion playing into Circle and Scorn is as hard as it is for some of the other factions, which is why I actually like we may not have gotten any like crazy cool model releases, but I feel like the meta is kind of shifting in a way that's good for us, where both the Scorn lists and the Circle list like shit on guns, which is great for us because the people are going like, I can't play my gun list. Everyone's playing Circle and Scorn, and they just, you know, take a huge old turd face right over all my gun lists. And we're like, yes, excellent. Just put those lists back in the bag, and now we will sneak out from behind.
And that was kind of our position in Mark II, where, you know, Crix was the big bad. Signar countered Crix. Well, if you're building your list for Signar and Crix, you're out of list to build for Legion. So we got to just come in there from the side, and I think that we're kind of in a similar position right now. We're middle of the pack from a power level standpoint, but from a meta standpoint, we've got a lot of options.
Yes, I 100% agree. Like if we're just talking about like in a vacuum, general power level for the faction, I feel like we are middle of the road, maybe even slightly behind the pack. But from a meta perspective, I feel like we're placed very, very well. A lot of the things that we don't want to see are really bad in the existing meta. And like there was actually a fair amount of Signar and like different gun lists and stuff at PDX, and they like all lost round one. And it was just like, bloop, they're all gone. Like, I mean, outside of like Brandon, the WTC team leader playing Crucible Guard, like I think just about every other gun list like lost round one.
And Crucible Guard's the big one right now. They're building predominantly gun lists, and they're very popular because they're cool models and they're a fun faction to play. So we're going to see a lot of them. We just got to have a plan.
No, for sure. And I'd say if you're trying to examine like maybe not global meta, but national or regional meta, I would say the three top factions are probably Scorn, Circle, and Crucible Guard. But when you step back and go, well, how does Legion deal with this sort of stuff? I feel like Legion has actually got very reasonable matchups into Scorn and Circle. We're behind the curve into Crucible Guard, but hey, you could easily be in. A lot of other factions are looking at that and go, we're bad into all three.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when a good portion of the game is like, we do not have an answer to this existing meta, at least Legion's going, well, we can get some 50-50 games in here for sure.
Yeah. I'll make you work for it for sure.
We're not going to make this easy. Can you play into Callus 1 without clocking? That is going to be the question I will ask your lists. So that's really cool. So you've been experimenting with Lilith 2. You've been experimenting with Absalonia 2. Is there anything else that's been on your table right now?
I've been trying to build a Sagrosh 2 list because
haven't we all?
I know, right? It got in my head the other day and started bouncing ideas across my group me, and I'm like, well, is this going to work? Can I play him in? Let's play him in Children of the Dragon. I mean, shoot, does he work in there? And if I just had a little more Fury management, maybe it does. But I don't have a list for him yet, but he's on my mind.
I've been thinking about the Gobbler Chef potentially as a Children of the Dragon tool, because you don't necessarily have a shortage of units to potentially bring in. And so having access to some infantry that your beast can then eat may fix that. I'm trying to get mine painted. Unfortunately, I just assembled mine, and the green stuff on his feet, like I was getting them all positioned. I didn't notice, and he started leaning backwards. So I have to like cut him off the base and like redo that. But I got out, and so in addition to trying the Animag list, I wanted to give Veil 1 a try with a little bit more beasts. A couple episodes ago, I talked about the Veil 1 list that I wanted to play, but it's only 2 heavies. And so I straight up, before I ever got that many games with it in, my biggest concern was that once something starts attacking Veil, which will eventually happen, she plays too risky of a game for it to not happen, she's going to run out of boxes really fast. Like 2 transfers, and you're going to be looking at a real short amount of War Beast boxes. And that can be a real big issue, because I've had games where people go for assassinations on her, but I used to play her like all beasts. And, you know, when she transfers 3 or 4 times, you know, that hurts even a 5 heavy list. And so imagine it on a 2 heavy that are both flying beasts. And sure enough, in most of my games, I was able to protect her. People really didn't get that many opportunities to attack her at the PDX Open. But when it finally happened, I was just like, man, I've transferred like 2 attacks, and I feel like my beasts are both nearly dead. And so I've been really thinking about ways to like improve the beast lineup. And man, I will admit, I love playing with the 4 units. Double Chosen, Warmongers with Gorak, and a unit of birds. She fucking loves it. That quad of troops is so great because the Chosen get to go up, murder stuff, and back up. The Warmongers do fantastic work because you can give them Chiller so they can reliably hit those Berserk attacks into something else. And then it doesn't help them hit their buddies, because Chiller only affects enemies. So it's just a perfect buff for them. But then being able to have incited birds fly over your front line, kill stuff, and then retreat out of the way, but then get to like fly into all sorts of obnoxious positions to jam people up during the feat turn. We're like, I'm going to move all the important stuff back, and now you get to be choked up on a unit of birds. Have fun. Has been great, but there's not a lot of, when you play that list, it's Seraph and Golab. And Golab's money, and Seraph's great with her. But I was trying a little bit more beast-heavy version where I dropped the Warmongers and I dropped the birds, and I put in 2 Nerfs. And so it's like 4 heavies, and it plays an even crazier hit-and-run game. You lose a lot of the jam from the list, but I got to try that. I also played that into Makita 3, which he pretty much immediately felt like he cannot play Makita 3 into that, because he shot at me and softened, you know, he took some gunshots at me with his battle engines, but then, so I approach the zone, and this is the whole plan. Like, I want to like toe into the zone, and then I'm going to come across, I'm going to kill whatever's in the zone. And so he throws both turtles into me because they charge like 1,000,000 inches. And so they both go through, and they both like, they kill 3 Chosen each plus damage more, and they're getting gunshots elsewhere. So they did this bunch of work, and in the same turn, he's able to put Cyclops Savages into my Hellmouths. And so, boom, suddenly I'm down 2 Hellmouths, and most of my Chosen are dead. Problem is I have Veil 1 and a feat, and so I kill both of the battle engines, both of the Cyclops, and all he's going to get to kill in response is 2 Chosen. And I'm up on scenario. And he immediately, like, he's like, I thought I killed a lot of stuff. It's not enough. It was not enough. And then the thing that we never got to do with Veil 1 back in Mark II is have 3 sprinting beasts. Like, at that point, sure, now I'm losing Chosen, and that's fine. I don't need them that much longer. But now my whole battle group basically sprints. So now I'm playing Veil's Feet every single turn. It did feel real good. It's definitely more finesse not having the jam options, but man, I love playing Veil 1.
How did you feel keeping her alive? Like, you'd mentioned issues transferring.
Well, it was a big part about when things go into her. And if someone's going for an assassination run, you've got to have some transfer targets, or if they like get a few things on you and thinking about that. But in most situations, people don't get that many attacks on her. Part of it is 2/3 of the tables have a giant forest or house in the middle of the board, right? You're going to have that most of the time. And if you don't have that, you can choose to not drop her. You have this other list. And Callus is perfectly happy flooding the middle of board with stuff. So, you know, that's kind of my thought direction. Like, if there's no defensible terrain for her, I don't necessarily have to play her. But I will do a combination of things. One, you don't have to go up and aggressively insight. If you just need to clear zones and they're just like, it's bottom of 2, they're not giving you a ton of shit. And so you can potentially just have Chosen charge up, kill medium-based models or whatever, the things that they're putting into contest, and then potentially feat just to back up all the stuff just so you can go up on scenario. But with all of that said, like, you don't necessarily need insight to do that, right? Like, there's still POW 15 charges, and you can put some nerfs, and you can back your stuff up super far. But in key situations, putting the 2 nerfs in front of her, putting a couple of Chosen in front of her, all of these things, you know, tie things up with you know, tentacles and that sort of thing. Honestly, I have not felt that unsafe with her. The big thing, if you played her in Veil 2, or if you played Veil 1 back in Mark II, you can't do all of her spells, and not nearly as much as you could back then, because you can't reliably upkeep both Leash and Chiller and cast Insight, because that puts her at 2, and that's danger zone. She'll die. You have to keep her at 3 or 4. If you're going to cast Insight on turn 2 or on turn 3, you have to keep her at 3. And a lot of time, if I'm going to cast Insight on bottom of 2, that's the only thing she's casting. Like, I will keep her on 4, and that's totally fine, especially in the 2 beast list. And that, honestly, that scares a lot of people off of it, right? Because, you've got Dark Sentinel, which fucks all sorts of shit up, right? If they charge in a dude, you're probably going to kill that one, so they lose an attack. And so, she's got concealment all the time. Concealment matters a whole lot more now than it did back in Mark II. Like, now it's a serious deal. I would still love to have a protector in the list with her. Because getting her to defense 17 versus melee attacks and having a shield guard that can move with the feet, that's the problem. People are like, hey, play Valks with her. I'm like, it becomes a really messy. Like, even a Feral Geist, you're like, I only get to run you once, but then I rearrange my whole army, and now you're not where I want you to be, and you're taking up space that I need an infantry model to go into. So I'm really shy about taking any sort of mercs with her, because they even one model can mess up your whole plan and suddenly be like, well, now I'm losing something that I didn't want to lose because I don't have the ability to shuffle things around. But honestly, I have not felt that unsafe with her. And honestly, I've said this and I get a little bit of shit for it, but if she got to move with her feet in this meta right now, she'd be busted. Like, you would have to change her feet in some other way. You cannot let her move her entire army of dudes. Like, you cannot have her moving a unit of birds, a unit of chosen, another unit of chosen, a unit of warmongers, and 2 beasts, and like herself too. Like, if she could move up Insight and catch all of that shit, honestly, I think it would be too good. Like, you would have to limit how many things she could move with her feet. Like, you would have to be like, 5 plus, 6 or 7 or something plus a D3. You just couldn't do like 30 things. Like, it's too much.
Yeah, let's not get back into the, only X number of things. We don't want to go through that anymore. We're happy now. It's very simple feat.
Yeah,
we'll stick with it and play around it.
It's great, and I think if they did any real testing, like, obviously Primal Terrors didn't exist, and I think if Primal Terrors didn't exist, you probably could let her move with her feet, and it would probably be fine. But I think it would potentially be too good. I would like to see 2 more War Beast points on her. I think that would fix a lot of her problems. Things are really tight for her.
Even just 1, put her at 28 like everyone else. 27, right?
Fantastic. I mean, it bothers me when I see stuff like Makita 3, who comes with 2 dudes, or Thagrosh 2, who's a beast himself, and they're 2 less War Beast points than her. I'm like, she can't even charge. She doesn't even have Gunfighter. But no, I really like her, and so I'm definitely looking to play some more with her. And I liked trying a beast heavy list with her, and I actually built a Children of the Dragon list with her, because it incentivizes you taking protectors, which I think help her a lot. It can help into some shooting matchups, and having some extra durability on Zuriel and Azrael with her. And like, the units and stuff are going to do really good work with her. Having access to the Ice Witches, which will also, like, Ice Witches with Insight is dumb. Like, they're going to clear off weird. You're going to have so much work out of that 7-point unit. I might take 2. But that's something that I want to try, because I think basically being able to sprint Azrael once, like letting him like do cool stuff and then back up, I think is going to put people in a really cautious position. And having potentially POW 19 spears chucked in your face every turn.
Nobody likes that.
Yeah. So, that's something that I'm thinking about that has game. And I know when I gotten a little bit of crap, people like, there's nothing special about your Veil list. It's just another Primal Terrors list. I'm like, well, nobody was playing Veil. Well, there's a few people, but they were getting shit for it too. But I more so than actually Oracles, I think I want to try her in Children of the Dragon. I think there's game there.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about her running that list, but it makes perfect sense. I mean, she buffs the infantry in the list, and that infantry needs some help. So,
for sure. And like, she does good things like Hex Hunters end up being like Magic 8, POW 15s. Incubi all get help from Insight now. Like, so if you take like Emmanuel's style of list and then you're running the Hex Hunters with Incubi, like she can boost up all of their effectiveness. And even if you're running that Protector, he does good work too, because he suddenly is like Mat 7, POW 14. And so he can just kind of like hang out by her and potentially pop a couple of things, you know. I feel like there's game. I don't know if I like it as much as the Primal Terrors version, because I think her and Chosen and Birds and Warmongers, it's so much work. But let's be honest, GoLab I feel is just the best thing in Legion right now. Like,
without a doubt,
he is probably 1 or 2 points undercosted. Like, just to be honest, like he's really, really good.
Yeah, I really like GoLab. I think that he may not single-handedly, we still have Hellmouths, but he's definitely buoying that theme force quite a bit.
I think more so than people realize. And I think we kind of lucked out, because I think people got really focused on testing Animag with the Blightbringer. And I don't think people fully tested out GoLab. And I think we ended up sneaking through the CID with a potentially broken Warbeast. GoLab's super good.
I'll take it. Any game I get to feed him back with Thagrosh, it's usually a win. Like, if he comes back and he actually gets to do work that second time, that's too much.
No, I haven't had anyone able to kill GoLab yet. I don't think I've lost GoLab in most of the games I've played. Even with Callus, there's so few times that GoLab has actually like ever bit the dust. But man, I'll tell you, did you play Veil 1 much in Mark 2?
Right near the end, she was our Bradigus drop and Runes drop. Sure. I mean, you kind of had to play her. She was just insane.
Yeah, she was definitely our best option, I think, into Bradigus and potentially also into Trolls at the time, because there wasn't a whole lot of other things you're going to be able to stand up to the elemental, whatever the fuck that EE. But man, it is super fun having GoLab like go murder a bunch of stuff, sprint to a different position so that other things can ignore tough, and then get to back him up with a feat. And in some games, I will leash and slipstream him forward first to catch things in the aura, kill stuff, then have him go kill stuff. So he ends up affecting 3 different locations and then still lives.
No, that's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, that always feels so good. But just being able, it's what Callus 2 players have been doing, right? Like throw GoLab across the board, slipstream plus leash, extending his threat range to 16. That's how I killed Scar top of 2 or something. Scar 3, but anyway, well, this has been our list dojo. We appreciate Rodney and Wildwing Zero coming in and, you know, hanging out in the chat. And thank all the listeners who tuned in. We'll have Emmanuel back next week for sure, but we always love having David on, getting some perspective outside of the West Coast, representing Houston. So David, I'm really looking forward to seeing like what all other stuff you've been testing. Are you going to make it out for Lock and Load this year?
I'm hoping to. Kingdom Con is getting precedence, but if I can sneak in a Lock and Load too, that'd be great.
So you are going to Kingdom Con?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to have to talk, because I'm trying to figure out if I should go. I have the time off already.
Yeah, it's the one event every year Tom makes it to. So he says that's his favorite event. So I'll take his advice. He's been to all of them.
Okay, it is a fun event. Have you done Kingdom Con before?
I did once in Mark 2, and it was a blast. Very well run event, and it's a beautiful city.
I did it 2015, 2016, I forget which year, but I loved it. Ross runs a fantastic event. Well, all right, listeners, we're going to go ahead and close out this episode. Again, huge thanks to David for joining us, always bringing the Blight, but we will have more Blight Makes Right for you next week. We're out.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Blight's out.